When's the last time you had something happen?
I haven't really thought. I'd say maybe like Tuesday next week because my grades are due Friday. All right. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, little precious 8th period. Okay. Okay, so you are taking your test on Wednesday. Okay, I do want to draw your attention to right here. Okay, test 1 and 2, you're allowed to correct. Test 3, you can't because the quarter's over. Okay, so if there has been a pattern of, oh, I'll just correct it later, you can't do that for the 3rd test. Okay, so you will not be able to do test corrections on test number 3. Okay, all right. Here we go. Okay, top of your paper. Shh, 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 shh. Okay, let's try to lock in. Last test. Okay, you have learned 4 ways to factor. You should know how to do GCF. You should know how to do perfect square roots. You should know how to do the AC chart. And you should know how to do grouping. Okay? Those are the 4 ways that you should know how to factor for this test. Okay? So I'm going to do just 3 questions off the front here. Okay, we're going to start with number 2. Okay, so taking a look at number 2, can you GCF that? Can you AC chart that? No. You don't have enough pieces. Can you grouping that? Then the only option left is what? Perfect squares. So let's take the square root of 9x squared. What would that be? 3x and 3x. What's the square root of 25? Plus or minus 5. Remember, you put 1 in each parentheses. And then for your test, there are 2 things it's going to ask you to do, okay? Most of it's multiple choice, just so I can grade it pretty quick. Okay, what you just did is called factoring. If you're asked to solve, that's where you would take each piece and set it equal to 0 separately. But remember that I showed you a shortcut for that. So whatever number's in the parentheses, you know, you're going to change the sign. So for example, here, if it's a plus 5, what am I going to switch it to?
Minus 5.
Minus 5. And then you would just slide the 3 down to the bottom. Now, if you want to set it equal to 0 and solve it, obviously you're welcome to do that. Okay, but for your shortcut, just switch the sign and then divide if x has a number on it. Okay? So what would my second factor be? Or a solution be? Plus 5 over 3. Okay? So you should be able to factor it. Okay, which is breaking it down into the parentheses, and you should be able to get the x equals. Okay? Let's do number 4. Okay, what type of yeah, let's do 4. Okay, what type of factoring would that be? For number 4, correct. GCF is correct. What can they both divide by? Okay, we're going to take out a 2 and an x. Remember, a GCF could be a number, could be a letter, or it could be both. So my 2x is going to come out. My 2x3 is now just going to be an x squared. What's going to happen to my 32x when I divide it by 2x? Now remember, if it's a minus, you can break that square root down again. Okay, which is what we just did. So what's the square root of x squared? X. What's the square root of 16? 4. Then it'll go to x plus 4 and x minus. Okay. Then also remember that you had a 2x in the front. Now, every x should give you an answer. So that means this equation has 3 answers. My minus 4 will turn to a what? Plus 4. Plus 4 will turn to a minus 4. Do you remember the answer for an x on the outside? 0. Very good. So remember, an x on the outside means 0 is an answer. Okay, and then the other ones will just be the opposite of the parentheses. Okay. All right, we're going to do one more off this page. We're going to do number 8. So take a look at number 8, bless you. Okay, label your ABC. Okay, this is an AC chart because it has 3 numbers. Okay, and for an AC chart, remember your AC goes in the attic, your B goes in the basement. AC is A times C. What is 6 times negative 10? Minus 60. And then my B or basement number is 17 in the middle. Okay, now 60 is a bit of a big multiply number. So if you want to get the calculator chart, like I had showed y'all that one day, remember you're going to type 60 divide x. Okay, so I'll show you on this one, whatever your times number is, it's 60 divide x. And then it'll just pull up all the partners so you don't have to think about them. Second graph to look at your table. So I see 1 and 60 are partners. 2 times what? 30. 3 times what? 20. 4 and 15. 5 and 12. This one kind of has a lot of partners. And then 6 and 10. Okay, but all of those partners multiply back to 60. Okay, now how do I tell if it's a plus or a minus chart? The sign on the AC. If your AC is negative, this is a subtract chart. Okay, versus if your AC is a positive, you have to add to get the basement. So question, can I pick 5 and 12 to add to 17? No, because it's a minus at the top. So which ones are going to minus to give me the correct AC? Very good. 20 and 3. Now, when I pick my minus, I want to keep my B positive. So do I want to put the minus on the bigger or the smaller number? So minus, and plus. So it'll be x minus 3 and x plus 20. Now, if your A is a 1, you're done with your factoring. What is my A on this question? 6, then I have to divide and slide over 6. So put over 6 and over 6. Okay, remember, you only have to do this step if your A is not a 1. Now, usually, and I think I picked questions on your test that this will divide. Okay, but 3 out of 6 won't really divide, but it will reduce. Okay, let me show you how to do it in the calculator just in case. Hit second quit to go to your regular screen. So second quit. If you want to do 3 over 6 and reduce it, just hit alpha X and type it in, and it'll reduce it for you. But 3 and 6 can both divide by 3, so it would go to 1/2. So this is really an x minus 1/2. And then what will 20 over 6 go to? Divide the top and the bottom both by 2. It'd be 10/3. Are we good with that? Okay, but usually one of them will divide and then the other one will slide. And I'm pretty sure for your test, that's what's, you won't have to reduce, but you should know how. Okay, then slide what's left over. So your factors are 2x minus 1 and 3x plus 10. Okay? Now, if the question asks you to factor, this is the answer, because factor means write it as parentheses. If it asks you to solve, you would write x equals. If it was a minus 1/2, my answer is positive 1/2. And if it's an x plus 10/3, I know my answer is minus 10/3. Okay, but remember, where are those coming from? You switch the sign on the number in the parentheses, and you just pull that top number back down. So -1 goes positive, slide the 2 down to the bottom. 10 goes negative, slide the 3 back down to the bottom. Are we good with that? All right, while we're at it, I want to do the grouping question, which is on the back page. Okay? So go ahead and turn for me to number 12. 12A and 12B, which of those will be done by grouping? B. Remember, for grouping, you have to have 4 terms. Okay, and the reason that you have to have 4 terms is so you can split them into teams of 2. So this is going to be my first group. This will be my second group. Okay, out of the first group, what can I take out as a GCF? Okay, 4x what? More than just a 4x? Squared, because if they both have it at least an x squared, I want to pull that out. So my 4x squared is left over, or is going to leave left over a parentheses. Out of the 4x3, if I take out a 4x squared, what am I left with? And then 20 divided by 4? Be a minus 5. Okay, look at your second group. What can I take out? What number? 3. And if the front one's negative, remember, you want to pull the negative out too. So my minus 3 is coming out. What's left over from my minus 3x? Just an x. What about 15 divided by minus 3? Minus 5. Now remember, your parentheses have to match for grouping to work. So when I look at this, and I see that those are the same, that's my check that I'm doing this correctly. So I'm going to put same, little check mark. If those match, that's your first factor. So x minus 5. My second factor is going to come from what I GCF'd out. So what were my GCFs that I took out? A 4x squared and a minus 3. Now, if you're asked to factor only, this is your answer. But if you're asked to solve, remember the answers are the opposite of what the parentheses say. So if it's an x minus 5, what does that mean x is going to equal? Positive 5. Okay, and then for this second one, you'll notice that it's not broken down all the way. So we're going to have to try to break it down again using square roots. Can you tell me what is the square root of 4x squared? 2x, yes. So 2x and 2x. And then if I asked you to find the square root of 3, we like when it's perfect, but is the square root of 3 perfect? No, so we're just going to leave it as plus root 3 and minus root 3. And now I'm ready to identify my answers. It's going to be x equals. If I started with a positive root 3, do you remember I changed the sign and then just slide the 2 to the bottom? So it'd be a minus root 3 over 2. Okay, and then for my 2x minus root 3, I would change that minus to a positive root 3 and then slide the 2 back down. Okay, but remember, the answers in the parentheses and the final answers should always be reversed. Okay? All right, last one that we'll do off this page. Let's just go ahead and hit 14. You're asked to write a polynomial function, so put y equals. Okay, it says the degree is 3, the leading coefficient is 1. We're going to skip that for now. We want real roots at 7 and -2. Now, if 7 and -2 are answers, what would the parentheses have to say? 7 would give me what parentheses? X minus 7. And then if I want -2, my parentheses would have to say X plus 2. Very good. Now, a double root means that it's going to be listed twice as an answer. And where do I want my double root to be at? -1/2. So I'm going to put X plus 1/2. Because remember, it's always the opposite. And then to show that it's a double, I can either write it out twice or I can just put a square dot. Now, you will not see that as an answer choice because remember, we don't want this as a fraction if it's in factored form. So you're going to just slide the 2 to the front. So your final answer would be X minus 7, X plus 2, and then I would slide that 2 to be a 2X plus 1 squared. Okay? Now, let's talk about the other stuff that we kind of skipped over. If it's a degree 3, that means you should have 3 answers. 1, 2, 3. A leading coefficient is just the number you put in the very front, which is a 1. Okay, so leading coefficient is just the number you'd place in the front. Okay? Do you have any questions on that? All right. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to work through number 9. Now, 9 and 10 are the same questions. Okay, they're just different graphs to go with it. So this is from the notes, I think 10 maybe, where we just talked about a bunch of different kind of random things. So my graph is increasing. I want you to write where it's uphill. And my graph will be decreasing when it is going downhill. So this graph starts off going uphill or downhill if you're traveling forward. How does it start off? Downhill. And it's downhill all the way until, I'm going to say -2, which is kind of like in the middle, but I just want to hold on there. Okay, then it goes uphill until when? Where does it hit the top? 2. Then it goes downhill. I don't want that. And then it goes uphill again at 4, all the way to the end of the graph. So my uphill or increasing sections are -2 to 2, union, which is the little U symbol, and then 4 to infinity. Okay, but remember, for uphill, downhill, you have to be traveling forward to tell if you're going up or down. Okay, can you write the decreasing intervals, which would be where your graph is going downhill? Okay, for this one, how far back does the graph go? -infinity, and then it goes downhill all the way until, we're going to say -2, just to kind of round it off to a nice whole. Okay, then what is my other little downhill section? 2 to 4, very good. Okay. Remember, you only have to use the union symbol if you have more than one section. Okay? All right, increasing, decreasing, or uphill, downhill. The next thing you need to be able to tell is when your f of x is greater than 0 or less than 0. Okay, it is greater than 0 when the graph is above the x-axis. And it will be less than 0 when the graph is below the x-axis. your graph will equal 0 when it crosses the x-axis. So I'm going to write for that x-intercept. Okay? So greater than 0 means above, less than 0 means below, equal to 0 means that it touches the x-axis. So let's do the x-intercepts first. Can you tell me, they're all whole numbers, where does this hit the x-axis on your graph? Okay, -3 I heard. What else? 2 and 5. Now, for below the x-axis, I want to list it as intervals. When does the graph start being below the x-axis? What x value? Yeah, -3. Let me try to hide what's above it. So it'd be from -3, then it kind of touches, but it stays below until when? So it'd be -3 to 5. Okay. Your graph is above the x-axis on the ends. So let's start with the left end. If I'm over here, now I'm covering everything below. This would be from -infinity till -3, and then from 5 till infinity. Those would be your above sections. Okay, -infinity to -3, and 5 to infinity. Okay, but just don't confuse increasing and positive. Those aren't the same. Increasing is uphill. Greater than 0 means above. Do we feel okay on that? All right, we're going to come back to F. Let's go to the next question. Even or odd. Remember, even means the same ends, like both up or both down. Odd means opposite ends. So when you're looking at the ends of this graph, are they both same way or opposite? They're both up, then this is, okay, not only is it even, but I could say it's even with a positive coefficient because they both point up. Okay, for a possible equation for the graph, you're going to use the x-intercepts, but you have to think about if they're passes or bounces. And we talked about this maybe the last 2 class periods. So I'm going to write you a little note. Use the x-intercepts. And then I'm going to put single is a pass versus double is a bounce. And I'll explain to you what I mean by that, but go ahead and just write it down for right now. So a single will be a pass through and a double is a bounce. All right, right, y equals. What was my first x-intercept that I listed in part E? What number? What was my first x-intercept that I listed? -3. What would the factor or the parentheses have to say? X plus 3, right? So put x plus 3. Okay, my next x-intercept was a 2. So I would put x minus 2. Because remember, they're always the opposite. Okay, my last one is a 5. So I would put in x minus 5. And now I'm going to go back and check if any of them should be double roots. Remember that double roots are going to bounce at the x-axis. So looking at your graph, did they all pass through or is one of them a bounce? Okay, which one is a bounce? 2. Very good. Okay, so remember, if it's a bounce, that indicates that that factor should be listed twice because it's a double. Okay, versus the other 2 because they do pass through their singles. So go to your x minus 2 and put a square dot. Okay, just to show that that one's a bounce. So let me show you your final answer for that should just be that. Oh, right there. Questions on that? All right. Last thing that we're going to cover is end behavior. Okay, so on this same graph, it says to label the end behavior, but we're going to do it on the picture. Okay, so take a look at number 9 at the graph. If you're on the right end, which way should your X go? To infinity or negative infinity? Infinity is correct. And which way is that end pointed? Up or down? Then your f of x should go to infinity. So remember, the x tells you which end you're on, and then the y tells you points up or down. Okay, now let's do the other side. If I'm checking the left end, which way is my x going? If I'm going to the left, it should be a minus infinity or a negative infinity. And then which way does it point, up or down on this graph? Still up means your y is going to infinity. Okay, so remember, x tells you left or right, y tells you up or down. So if both ends point up, both y's should go to infinity. And then on your test, it could say f of x or y, but those are the same. Okay? So we're going to do one of the graphs off the back page for that, and then we're done. So go back to number 11. Okay, it asks you to do end behavior on all 4. Okay, I'm just going to do it for the very last graph. Number 4, this one right here. All right, let's start with this end. What should my x go to? Infinity or negative infinity? Infinity, because I'm on the right side. Which way is it pointed, up or down? Then y is also going to infinity. Okay, now let's do the other end. What's my x going to if I'm doing the left end? The left end is negative infinity. And then which way is your end going, up or down? Down. Now, if you remember what a horizontal asymptote is, okay, since we haven't covered it, I'm going to just not worry about it. Pretend this just keeps going down forever now, okay? Just to make it simple, we're going to get into asymptotes later, but for now, that's what I want to see for your test. Okay? Questions on that? All right, so you have an hour. Okay, remember, your test is next class. You don't have corrections on this one. So make sure if you have questions, ask them now, okay? Because I love to help. Okay, you can do it. And then answer key will be online shortly. I'm almost done.
Your next class is what? No.
Your test is Wednesday.
Oh.
So that Friday you can have like a free day. Because of the homecoming break.
Wait.
Yeah, because today's Monday.
Oh, wait.
So Wednesday will be regular, and then Friday, you know, it's short because of the y'all get out early for the parade and all that. That'd be
Awesome. All right, so for free.
So today's Monday. We did the review. I'll see you again on Wednesday. You'll take your test, and then on Friday is another B day, but you have a free.
Oh, okay. So test next class.
Correct, on Wednesday.